Greetings, good people. Welcome to Who Knows It's Just Life, the podcast. I'm your host, Kyle. Thank you for fitting me into your day today. I know it's been another several weeks since posting an episode, but I appreciate the patience. And I guess it might just be like a once a month thing at this point. I don't know how fast I'm going to be able to keep up with it, but I appreciate you listening. And yeah, today, kind of towards the end of June, I wanted to focus on the June that I had a little bit, talk about a few themes from this month, and really like kind of reflect on summer so far and kind of look forward to summer going forward. So as far as updates are concerned, at the end of May, we saw the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa Race Massacre, which, I think it's interesting when people talk about race riots and stuff like that. I think some people think that means black people being angry about things, but historically, race riots have almost always been white-led violence against black communities. The history of that is far longer and far more devastating than anything that black folks have done in their uprisings. So I use that term a little bit cautiously because of what most people think about, or at least what I think most people think about. Maybe people are don't have that initial thought. But yeah, as everybody probably knows, the Tulsa massacre was just, the horrible, symbol for what whiteness can do and what white violence is in this country. A lot of people talk about, black capitalism, be capitalist, do this, do that, like get your money, make yourself a community, blah, blah, blah. Well, Tulsa was one of the best examples of that. And there were several examples of that since 1865, for about 50 years or so. And, what happens? White people bomb it, and not every race riot, white race riot, involved bombs. But, that's why Tulsa is just so bad. But anyway, it was 100 years since that event took place. And obviously nothing's ever been done about it. It took forever for folks to even acknowledge that it happened. There's still horrible records about who we still don't even know an exact number, how many people passed away and were killed. It's just a mess. But this year, though, we saw 3 elders who survived and were alive at the time of the massacre. And, they basically were testifying to a subcommittee in Congress trying to reinvigorate the push for reparations for folks that are survived by that attack. And it's just crazy that folks 100 years later need to still ask for reparations for something like this. This is a very blatant thing that we know happened. And I don't know. I just can't wrap my mind around it. But anyway, elders, Ms. Viola Fletcher, Mr. Hughes Van Ellis, and Mr. Leslie Bennifield Randall all testified. And I watched, bits and pieces of their testimony. And I mean, it's really hard to imagine they were around my son's age when this happened. I think Miss Fletcher, I believe, is 107. So she would have been like a year old, like my son is about to turn 8. So I couldn't imagine being that age and witnessing what they witnessed. And then for nothing to happen. Like I just, in terms of no repair, no remediation, no nothing. As they said in their testimony, they were left, they survived, but they had nothing. Like the community was destroyed. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how to move forward from that. Like I don't. And the fact that it's not as well known as it should be is just, the reason this history isn't told is because it doesn't fit the story that we want to tell about the United States. And that's like I said in the episode with my mom, that's a huge part of the problem. But anyway, as far as other updates, I've got a couple camps lined up for my son. He does have like a theatrical. He likes to perform and stuff. He loves Hamilton and whatnot. So got him into 2 separate weeks of camp with a local theater So I'm curious how that'll go. Kind of excited for that. I guess another thing that's going on right now is the Olympic qualifiers. It's really dope to see so many black folks like seemingly gearing up to crush it. I know there's been a lot of discussion around Sha'Carri Richardson and Simone Biles and others. So it's going to be really exciting to see how that plays out. Definitely gearing up for that. One thing I will say about Sha'Carri Richardson, I remember when the clips first started getting out there about her interview and how she lost her biological mother and all these things. Like, well, really, it wasn't even that. It was really just how she presented herself and how, first of all, how she ran, how she won, and just like her look and she just was unapologetically herself. And I know that there was some backlash, or at least some reaction to how she looked or whatever. And I probably had a little bit of a moment myself even. And I realized that I was just like, this is, if you have any kind of negative reaction to Sha'Carri Richardson doing what she did, speaking how she speaks and looking how she looks, we really need to question ourselves, because there's no reason why we should hate on her at all. Like, there's just no reason for it. And if we find ourselves doing that, we have to look at ourselves. What about ourselves is insecure? What about ourselves is, like taking on some kind of worldview philosophy? What about us is needs to make her smaller? You know what I'm saying? Like, as a man, like, is there something about me, patriarchy, whatever, that needs to make her smaller? Is there something that I feel intimidated by her, about her? She is a human being that, has persevered through whatever she's persevered through, happens to be able to run brilliantly fast, and all those things. She has so many gifts to this world. And for anybody to just see her in that moment and to hate on her is just unacceptable. And for me, it was a wake up call. It was a check in moment for myself to be like, okay, look, this is another example of, you know, divesting from a mentality that is harmful to black women, harmful to blackness, harmful to myself and my own people. You know what I'm saying? And so I don't know, that it's a tangent I wasn't necessarily expecting to go on, but that's something that I think is very important for us. And I think it's something that we can do in general when we react to anything, any human person, anybody, anything we see going on. What is the cause for this reaction, especially if it's a negative one? If you have a gut negative reaction to something, what's behind that? Is it truly your gut, or is it a systemic lesson that has been taught to you that you've internalized that is giving you a cause for a negative reaction? So anyway, yeah, I don't really know. That's all I got for updates for real right now. I kind of just want to get into the meat of what I want to talk about, which is, Juneteenth, Father's Day. For me, those, that was the same weekend, and I kind of was inspired. I decided to take my son on a trip to Indianapolis, and it's kind of random how that happened. He was kind of talking about, being like, he likes this area and whatnot, and I was kind of just like, okay, that's cool. We live in a cool area. The DC area is a cool area. But I was like, there's a whole world out here, and I definitely wanted him to be open to the idea of living anywhere, moving anywhere. And so I told him about my brother and sister who both, left for, went away for college, and I told him at 18, like, they went somewhere else or whatever. And he was like, wow, they just left home and didn't know anybody. And yeah. So I pulled up this list on Google of like top places to take kids or whatever, top, destinations for kids. And, DC is one of them, and he's been to a few others: Atlanta, Orlando, Hawaii, when we visited my family out there. So he's actually been to quite a few of them, which I was wow, like, he's privileged to have already been to a few. But Indianapolis was high up on the list, and it shocked me because Indy was not on my travel radar. It wasn't the place I was planning to go. And it's close enough. It was a quick, easy flight. So I was like, you know what? Let's make this the thing. Let's make this the the move. And so I booked the trip for the Father's Day weekend, which is also Juneteenth weekend. And yeah, so it was literally a blast. Flew in Friday night, long story, but basically the flights were delayed because of weather. And we didn't even get to the Airbnb till like 3 a.m. And he was a trooper. Like he slept on the plane, but he just rolled with it. It was great. So I found the Crispus Attucks Museum, which is affiliated with a high school by the same name in Indianapolis. And it's a museum that basically focuses on Black history, and it does so also with a specific focus on Indianapolis history. Kind of reminded me of the Reginald F. Lewis Museum in Baltimore, which basically does the same thing. I mean, the Reginald F. Lewis Museum is huge, and it's it's larger, and it's able to do a lot more. This is a museum that's kind of a section of a high school. You basically rolled up right to the high school, and there's a separate entrance towards the back, and this is where the museum is located. So me and the little one, we basically walked almost a mile to get there from the Airbnb, which was a trek, but it was fun. And so yeah, they had a nice little event. I think Brother Robert, I think his name was, who was facilitating and sharing about the history of Juneteenth, the Emancipation Proclamation, and all those other things. Obviously, the troops finally getting to Galveston, Texas, and that's where the whole idea of Juneteenth comes from. And really just kind of putting it in a contemporary context too, realizing that, that was the end of chattel slavery, and we've obviously been dealing with a lot of challenges since then with, legal slavery in terms of, once you've been convicted of a crime, that's when slavery is still allowed, blah, 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 stuff like that. So he did a good job kind of just like, connecting a lot of the dots there, but digging into the history. It spoke specifically about Indianapolis's role in the history there too. So that was interesting. And it's cool because that was like the one stop that I knew I wanted to make for Juneteenth. It was kind of low key, it was cool. But then I met a couple folks there who they were about to go to another event, which was at a park. And they were like, yeah, that's going to be, pretty lit. So my son and I got a Lyft vehicle to bring us to that location. And as soon as we got out the Lyft, I was like, man, this is the spot. We're going to be here for the rest of the day. Because it it was just families were rolling up in there. People had their dogs with them. It was just, and there was a stage, you could tell there's about to be some live music. They had a bounce house for the kids, food trucks and everything. I was like, man, so it was a blast. It was a blast. So I met a few cool people down there. A few of which I'm still in touch with now. So, it was just a really cool, dope environment. And it felt like where we were supposed to be. So I'm so glad and grateful that we were able to, find, both of those activities on Juneteenth. And I guess I'll say for me, Juneteenth was never something that my family celebrated or, it wasn't a big part of my upbringing. I became aware of it, later in life, like in college and whatnot, but it was never something, actually probably more likely after college, to be honest with you. But it was never something I learned, like I never practiced it in any certain way. I never really did anything for it, any traditions or anything like that. I know in certain parts of the country, it's huge and I love that. Actually, when I read Michael Twitty's book, The Cooking Gene, is when I first really kind of started to say, okay, there's a lot of unique cooking things that would be really dope to pull into a Juneteenth holiday. I've yet to really do those. This travel trip was kind of like a special thing to do. But if I'm local during Juneteenth, I really would like to try to get into the habit of doing something either from a culinary standpoint or something to kind of make the holiday a special thing for me and my family. But yeah, I don't know. It was cool. So let me back up though, because, the big news this year was that the federal government decided to make it a federal holiday, which, kind of came out of nowhere for me. I didn't really know. I didn't think we were close to that. I was like, where did this come from? So it happened, and I'm like, okay, all right, that's cool. But then immediately you're like, all right, you know what? This is about to be a mess because this country is going to commodify it. They're going to try to make. I mean, Christmas used to be about, the celebration of the birth of Christ, and is now like Santa and everything else. So it's like, you see what they do to all kinds of holidays. And I for that reason, I'm not wild about it being a federal holiday. I mean, it's also weird and whack that like everybody gets off. It's like, nah, man, like I don't know. It's like so white people are getting off on a holiday. Like I don't know. It just feels weird to me. It's just weird. And so but anyway, my company, Thursday night, Juneteenth was actually on a Saturday. It was recognized on the Friday this year. So my company, doesn't recognize every federal holiday, but it definitely it recognized Juneteenth. So I happily took the day off, and yeah, I don't know. So it's good. It's cool. I want to make it something for me. I want to make Juneteenth something for me that I can recognize and have my son kind of like be aware of it at his age, and hopefully it'll be a thing for him and the generations to come. As far as the whole federal thing, like I said, it's just kind of weird for me. But anyway, so the whole weekend was dope. I mean, we had like Friday was like a fully black day. Like it was dope. The next day on actual Father's Day, we went to the zoo, and then we went out and got some pizza after that. And that was dope. Then on the Monday, we went to the Children's Museum, which was pretty cool. The Children's Museum was cool. It dated me. Like they had like Beanie Babies up in the museum. Like, oh, look at these old toys. I was like, man, those things were so hot when I was like in middle school or whatever. But anyway, so that was cool. But then actually the most fun part about the Children's Museum was like the outdoor part. They had this whole sports area, which was really well done. They had like a basketball section where they talked about, basketball for like both the WNBA team and the NBA team kind of were featured there. They had a little baseball stadium that was cool. They had a track you could run a full mile around. They had a nice little tennis area where my boy was like really liking the tennis piece. And I was like, okay, cool. Like this is dope. We did a little bit of soccer. They had some football. They had hockey. They had a little IndyCar thing. They had mini golf. Literally, it had everything. They had every kind of sport. And he played in this treehouse thing too, which was dope. So that was a full day. Every single day in Indianapolis was like a full day, like from 9 or 10 in the morning till at least like 5 or 6 at night. And then we would even go out to eat after that. So it was action packed. The boy can travel. I love that. And what I would say probably my favorite part of the trip was on the flight home. As I mentioned, on the flight there, it was late at night. He was passed out. And I'm thankful for that. On the flight home, you can pull up how you can pull up the map and see the progress of the plane on your device. And so, he was able to look at that and he saw where we were coming from, where we were going home to. And he was like, okay, so how long does the flight take? I was like, an hour, like maybe like hour, 10, 15 minutes, whatever, something like that. And then we zoomed out and I showed him how big the globe is. And he was like, wow, like how long would it take to fly from Japan to Spain or whatever? He was just picking random countries on the map and just like thinking about how long it would take to get from one place to the next. And he was thinking, oh, I want to go to this place. I want to go to this place. And for me, that was the whole point of the trip. Like, Indianapolis was cool, but the point is like, you can go anywhere. And you can be anything, all that kind of cliche stuff, but it's real. And I hope that this experience kind of set that into his mind that he can go anywhere and do the thing. So now, I mean, the other thing he's been into so much is Godzilla, and so, like Japan is on his radar because of that. So who knows, maybe he'll want to travel there or something like that. I don't know. But anyway, it's cool. It's cool. It was definitely a beautiful trip. And yeah, I was proud of him. I was proud of my little man. But yeah, yeah. So the summer, I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, I also had a grown folks trip earlier in the month. That was a lot of fun too. Spent some time in Miami and Tampa. Did some fun stuff. I smoked a cigar for like the first time ever, and it wasn't terrible. My uncle's a big cigar head, so maybe I'll take him up on an opportunity to smoke a cigar or two. I don't want to get too crazy with it, but it was an enjoyable experience. The cigar bar down in Tampa was pretty dope. So yeah, I don't know. It was definitely that was a cool trip. With my boy, it was a cool trip. So I'm just thankful for the opportunity to be able to do a little bit of travel, get the summer started off, properly in terms of that. But yeah, I think that's about it for today. I know it's kind of feels like a pretty quick episode, but that's no problem. I mean, I know everybody's busy, so it's cool. I'll say right now, as far as the song I'm rocking to, I would say it has to be Protege featuring Coffee. What's this? Switch It Up. That joint goes so hard. Like, yeah, I've loved Coffee for a couple years now, or I guess a couple years now, because I saw her live with Daniel Caesar. She opened for Daniel Caesar back in, I guess that had to have been 2019. It wasn't last year. So yeah, I've been liking Coffee for a minute, but her with Protege on that joint was like, yo, that beat is lit too. So yeah, anyway, that's the song I'm rocking to right now. And yeah, I guess, let me know. Again, you can find me on Instagram. I'm at Realdadult, REALDADULT. You can hit me up if you have any questions, comments, concerns about any episodes. If you have any ideas for any future episodes, definitely get at me. But if not, stick around. We'll be back for another one coming up in the future. So until then, be safe, be well, peace.